So I want you to take a second and just look at the device you're using to listen to this deep dive right now.
Yeah, whether it's in your hand or, just sitting on your desk.
Exactly. Because it's really easy to assume that inside that little slab of metal and glass, there's just this, I don't know, this invisible bucket of electrical energy waiting to spill out.
Right, like a little fuel tank of pure electricity.
But the crazy thing is, there isn't a single drop of electricity actually stored in there. Instead, what's sitting in your pocket is actually a literal small miracle of trapped chemistry.
It really is. I mean, it's just entirely taken for granted. We interact with this technology constantly, but, most of us only ever give it a second thought when that battery icon turns red.
Oh, absolutely, the anxiety of the red battery.
Right. But the ability to bottle up potential energy and carry it around like that, it's arguably one of the most transformative engineering feats of our era.
So today, we are unpacking a really fascinating set of sources that explore this hidden world of batteries. Our mission for this deep dive is to demystify this taken-for-granted tech. We're going to break down the elegant chemistry happening inside your phone, understand why it sparked a technological revolution, and explore why it's the absolute linchpin for our clean energy future.
And I think it's important to establish right up front, you don't need any prior science background for this.
No, not at all.
We're just going to take our time, keep it unhurried, and really look at the mechanics of how this works.
So let's start with that initial claim, right? Because it completely runs counter to how most of us picture our devices. If a battery doesn't actually store electricity, what is going on in there?
Well, simply put, a battery stores the potential for a chemical reaction that just hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
It's this carefully packaged environment where a reaction really, really wants to happen, but it's physically prevented from completing until you say so. So if we look inside a standard battery cell, you essentially have two different materials, and these are called electrodes.
Got it.
One is the negative side, which we call the anode, and the other is the positive side, called the cathode.
Oh, so those are like the two terminals we see on opposite ends of a regular AA battery.
Exactly, yeah. They're connected directly to those terminals. Now, separating these two materials inside the casing is a chemical medium, and that's called an electrolyte.
Okay, so anode, cathode, and electrolyte in the middle.
Right, and the fundamental trick of the entire system just comes down to atomic imbalance. The material in the anode desperately wants to shed electrons so it can reach a stable state.
Like it's holding onto something hot and just wants to drop it?
Basically, yeah. And the material in the cathode desperately wants to receive those exact electrons for the exact same reason.
Well, wait. If they both want this exchange to happen so badly, and they're literally sitting millimeters apart in the exact same package, why don't they just trade the electrons right there and get it over with?
Because of that electrolyte sitting right between them.
The middleman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It acts as an absolute physical barrier to those electrons. The sources actually describe it kind of like a bouncer at a club.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, the electrolyte bouncer categorically refuses to let electrons cross the floor. Because if you somehow remove that barrier, right, and let the two materials just touch directly,
I assume that's bad.
very bad, that chemical reaction would happen instantly. You'd get this massive, chaotic flash of heat and energy,
Right.
and it would be completely useless to us.
Right.
So the sheer brilliance of a battery is that it forces a detour.
A detour. Visualizing this, it's like, imagine a huge crowd of people in room A, and they are absolutely desperate to get to room B.
Right.
But the direct door between the rooms is locked. That's the electrolyte bouncer. So instead, to get to room B, the battery forces them to walk down a super long hallway outside. And in that hallway, they have to push a really heavy turnstile.
That's a great way to picture it.
And pushing that turnstile that represents doing the work, right? Like powering your phone or your flashlight or a motor.
Exactly. That external hallway is your device. So when you turn on your phone, you are suddenly providing a bridge, a conductive wire from the anode to the cathode.
You're opening the hallway?
Yes. The electrons finally have a path. So they flow out of the negative terminal, they race through the circuitry of your device doing all that useful work, and finally arrive at the positive terminal, where the cathode just absorbs them.
Wow. So the flow of those desperate electrons taking that outside detour, that is what electric current actually is.
That is the current. But there is one more critical piece to this puzzle inside the battery.
Okay, what's that?
Well, as all these negative electrons are leaving one side and rushing over to the other side, the electrical balance of the battery gets thrown wildly out of whack.
Oh, sure, because all the negative charge is moving to one place.
Exactly. And if that imbalance built up, the reaction would basically choke and stop almost immediately. So while the electrons are taking the outside detour through your phone, positively charged atoms, which are called ions, they are actually allowed to drift directly through that internal electrolyte bouncer.
Oh, wait, so the electrolyte blocks the electrons, but it lets the ions swim straight through.
You got it. The ions move through the inside to keep the whole system balanced, while the electrons do the heavy lifting on the outside.
That is so elegant.
It really is. When you look at a battery, you are looking at a perfectly controlled chemical dance. And this explains exactly what's happening when a battery dies,
Right, because once all the material has moved, the tension is gone.
Exactly. The reaction keeps running, pushing electrons through your device and ions across the inside until the materials in the anode are just completely exhausted. Once the reaction is finished, the battery is flat.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense, but it brings up a huge question. If a flat battery simply means the chemical reaction has run its course and the materials are exhausted, that sounds permanent. So how does a rechargeable battery reset the board? Like, why don't I have to throw my phone in the trash every time the battery hits zero?
Well, this is where we have to differentiate between, say, a cheap, single-use battery you'd put in a smoke alarm and a modern rechargeable cell.
Okay.
In a single-use battery, the chemical reaction really is a strict one-way street. The materials physically change form as they discharge, and you just can't go back.
Got it.
But a rechargeable battery is brilliant because it uses materials whose chemistry is completely reversible.
Wait, really? So when I plug my phone into the wall, I am literally forcing a chemical reaction to run backward.
Yes, that's exactly what you're doing.
That's wild.
You're applying external electrical pressure. The charger pulls power from the wall grid and uses it to physically shove those electrons back up the hill.
Wow.
It forces them out of the cathode, back across the wire, and crams them all back into the anode. And at the exact same time, all those ions are forced to swim back through the electrolyte to their starting positions.
So you're literally rewinding the whole system.
Basically, yeah. You're rewinding that mechanical spring, restoring all of the materials to their high energy state so they're ready to uncoil all over again.
Okay, I hear that, but if we are just pushing the rock back up the hill and resetting the system, why does the hill seem to get smaller over time? Because, we all know an old phone from 3 years ago dies incredibly fast compared to a brand new one. If the chemistry is completely reversible, why does it degrade?
Well, the word completely is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Fair enough.
The reversal is about 99.9% efficient, but it's not entirely perfect. Every single time you force those ions to travel back and forth, they have to physically wedge themselves into the microscopic structure of the electrode materials.
Oh, I see.
And over time, that constant physical expansion and contraction, it causes microscopic stress.
It's kind of like constantly inflating and deflating a balloon, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, the rubber just gets brittle and weird.
That's a perfect analogy. The electrode materials actually develop microfractures.
Right.
Parts of the structure literally break off and become electrically isolated, which means they just can't participate in the reaction anymore.
They're just dead weight.
Exactly. And on top of that, sometimes the ions don't quite make it back into their proper slots. They can get stuck or they clump together on the surface of the anode, forming this useless layer of solid metal that blocks the flow for future cycles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so every single time you charge and discharge, you lose a tiny fraction of a percent of your overall capacity just to this physical wear and tear.
Which brings us to the absolute star player of the modern era, right? This specific chemistry that literally powers our lives, the lithium-ion battery.
Yes.
I mean, the researchers who developed this won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2019. And the sources make a very strong case that without this exact tech, the whole mobile revolution of the 1990s, smartphones, lightweight laptops, it just never would have happened.
They absolutely wouldn't have.
But out of all the elements on the periodic table, why lithium? What makes it so special?
Well, two fundamental physical properties make lithium the undisputed king of portable energy.
Okay.
First, it's atomic number 3 on the periodic table, so it is the lightest metal on Earth.
Oh, okay.
And second, because of its specific atomic structure, it is incredibly eager to shed its outermost electron. It really wants to react.
So it's super light and super willing to give up energy.
Exactly. When you combine extreme lightness with an aggressive willingness to release energy, you get a material that is incredibly energy dense.
Meaning it holds a massive amount of potential energy relative to its actual physical weight.
Right. Because weight is the ultimate bottleneck for anything portable. you know?
Oh, for sure.
Like, if you tried to power a modern electric car with those old-school lead-acid batteries we use to start gas engines,
Oh, man.
the car would be so heavy it would use most of its energy just hauling its own batteries down the road.
Right, that defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah. So lithium solves the weight problem. And the sources offer this really vivid analogy for how lithium actually functions inside the cell.
Yeah, I loved this part, the bookshelf thing, right?
Yes. So they describe the electrode materials as having this microscopic layered structure, almost exactly like a bookshelf.
Okay.
When the battery charges and discharges, the tiny lithium ions shuttle across the electrolyte, and they literally slide perfectly into the empty spaces between the layers of the electrode.
Exactly like books being neatly shelved in a bookcase.
Exactly. And then, when the current reverses, they pull themselves off the shelf and swim back to the other side.
That is wild.
It's a process called intercalation. And because the lithium ions are so remarkably small, they can slip in and out of those microscopic shelves without completely destroying the host material.
Which is why they can survive so many charges.
Right. It's this elegant, highly efficient mechanism. It gives us a battery that's lightweight, packs a massive punch, and can survive thousands of cycles before the bookshelf just gets too damaged to use.
Okay, but if this structural mechanism is so perfectly suited for portable power, we really have to talk about the severe limitations.
Yeah, we do.
Because, I mean, my phone routinely shuts down completely if I try to use it while waiting for a bus in the freezing cold.
Oh, yeah. Winter is tough on batteries.
And airlines. Airlines have incredibly strict paranoid rules about never, ever putting lithium-ion batteries in checked luggage. So what is the physical vulnerability here?
Well, engineering is always about trade-offs, right? There's no magic bullet.
True.
The very things that make lithium-ion batteries so powerful, their high energy density and super reactive materials, also make them highly vulnerable.
Okay, so let's look at the cold weather issue first. Why does my phone die in the snow?
Okay, so remember that liquid electrolyte sitting between the two electrodes?
The bouncer at the club.
Exactly. The one the ions have to swim through to keep things balanced. Well, when the temperature drops below freezing, that liquid electrolyte becomes highly viscous. It thickens up.
Oh, like putting honey in the refrigerator?
Exactly like that.
Mm.
And so those lithium ions physically struggle to swim through that thick fluid.
Oh, I see.
And because that internal balancing act slows to a crawl, the battery literally can't deliver the surge of electrons your device is asking for. So the phone software just shuts it down to protect the hardware.
Wow. Okay, so what about the other extreme? What causes a battery to actually catch fire on an airplane?
Yeah, this is a phenomenon known as thermal runaway. And it's serious.
Okay.
So between the anode and the cathode, suspended in that liquid electrolyte, there is a microporous plastic separator.
Okay, a separate.
It's this physical sheet barely thicker than a human hair.
Right.
And its only job is to keep the two highly reactive materials from touching, while still letting those tiny ions pass through the pores.
Right.
But if the battery is crushed or bent, or if it's just poorly manufactured and has microscopic metal shards left inside, that super fragile separator can tear.
And if the separator tears, the barrier is gone.
Yep, two materials touch directly.
Oh, like we talked about earlier.
Exactly. You get an immediate, massive short circuit inside the cell. All that trapped chemical potential releases its energy as pure heat in a fraction of a second.
That's terrifying.
And it gets worse. Compound that with the fact that the liquid electrolyte used in most lithium-ion batteries is a highly flammable organic solvent.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So the sudden spike in heat causes that flammable liquid to boil, expand, and just ignite.
So the casing bursts.
It bursts.
Yeah.
And furthermore, as the cathode material itself breaks down from all that extreme heat, it actually releases pure oxygen from its own chemical structure.
You're kidding. So it's literally feeding its own fire from the inside.
Yes. It becomes this self-sustaining blowtorch that basically cannot be smothered. And that is exactly why airlines refuse to put them in the cargo hold. A fire like that would be nearly impossible to extinguish mid-flight.
Okay, but if the liquid is so incredibly flammable, why use it at all? Like, why not just design a safer liquid?
Because so far, that specific organic solvent is the absolute best medium we've found for letting lithium ions travel quickly and efficiently at room temperature.
Oh, it's a trade-off again.
Exactly. We are actively trading extreme safety under catastrophic failure for high performance in everyday use.
That is wild. And, you know, this brings us to a massive, invisible reality that the source material tackles head on.
Yeah, the supply chain.
Right. We view lithium-ion as this amazing green technology because it enables electric cars and, you know, gets us away from burning fossil fuels. But there are serious supply chain and logistical bottlenecks to actually building these cells. What is the actual physical cost of assembling this chemistry?
Well, as the sources detail, building a high-performance lithium-ion battery requires an incredibly complex recipe of metals.
Okay.
Beyond the lithium itself, the cathode usually relies heavily on cobalt and nickel.
Cobalt and nickel.
Yeah, and the cobalt is particularly vital because it acts as the structural glue for that microscopic bookshelf we talked about.
Oh, really?
Without cobalt, when all the lithium ions leave the cathode during charging, the layered structure tends to just collapse in on exactly itself.
So the cobalt keeps the shelves propped open so the books actually have a place to return to.
That's exactly it. But mining cobalt, lithium, and nickel presents a staggering logistical and ethical challenge.
Because they aren't just everywhere.
No, the deposits are heavily concentrated in very specific regions around the world. Extracting them requires immense amounts of water and energy, and the industry has, really well-documented environmental impacts and complex labor realities.
Right.
The global supply chain relies on this massive extraction network just to gather the raw ingredients for one single car battery.
I look at this and just wonder, if we're digging up half the planet to mine thousands of pounds of rare metals for every single vehicle, aren't we just trading the geopolitical supply chain bottleneck of crude oil for a brand new supply chain bottleneck of battery metals?
It is a profound logistical shift, for sure. Nations are absolutely treating these metals as the defining strategic resources of the 21st century.
Right.
And it leads directly into the challenge of end-of-life logistics, too.
Oh, like recycling them.
Exactly. When a traditional gas car's battery dies, the heavy lead-acid one, recycling it is actually remarkably simple.
Is it?
Yeah, it's essentially just a plastic bucket filled with lead plates and acid. You drain the acid, you melt down the lead, and you build a new one. It's almost 100% recyclable.
But recycling a lithium-ion battery has to be entirely different, given how complex they are.
It's completely different. A lithium-ion cell is not a bucket of soup.
Right.
It is a highly engineered, microscopic layered cake.
A cake.
Yes. The lithium, cobalt, nickel, and copper are glued, pressed, and rolled together on a nanoscale.
Oh, wow.
So trying to recycle it is like taking a fully baked cake and trying to chemically separate the flour, the sugar, and the eggs back into pristine, raw ingredients.
That sounds impossible.
It's not impossible, but it requires intense heat, harsh chemical solvents, and really complex processing. It's just currently very expensive and energy-intensive to recover those materials efficiently.
Okay, so let me get this straight. We have this technology that is absolutely vital, yet it has severe physical limits, flammable vulnerabilities, and incredibly complex, expensive supply chain bottlenecks.
That sums it up.
But despite all of that, the current global mandate is to take this exact technology and scale it up to the size of literal warehouses to support the energy grid. Why? Why are we pushing this specific chemistry to grid scale?
Because, frankly, we've reached a tipping point where storage is the single missing puzzle piece for a renewable planet.
Storage.
Right. The transition to wind and solar power faces one inescapable physical reality, and that is intermittency.
Because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow.
Exactly. The sun sets every night, the wind drops unexpectedly. Yet human civilization demands a steady, unbroken flow of electricity to run hospitals and data centers and your home heating system 24 hours a day.
So we have to buffer the grid. Like, we have to capture the energy when nature provides it, hold it in suspension, and then release it when demand spikes.
Yes. And the source text points to these huge installations in South Australia as the blueprint for this.
Oh, right.
These are massive industrial complexes filled with thousands upon thousands of battery cells. They act as a giant shock absorber for the power grid.
A shock absorber?
Yeah, they soak up all the surplus renewable energy during the day, and then they inject it back into the grid in milliseconds when the wind dies down.
But using lithium-ion for this seems deeply flawed to me. Like, if weight doesn't matter for a stationary warehouse building, why use the rare, expensive, ultralight metals that we need for airplanes and sports cars?
That right there is the multi-billion-dollar question driving a massive influx of research money today.
Okay, so they know it's a problem.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because lithium-ion was perfected for mobile devices, it's just what we currently have the manufacturing capacity to build at scale right now.
It's what we have on hand.
Exactly. But researchers know it isn't the long-term solution for stationary grid storage. We need new chemistries.
I feel like I see headlines every single week claiming some lab has invented a miracle battery that will change the world forever. How do we filter the genuine engineering breakthroughs from just, venture capital hype?
That's a great question. The sources actually outline two highly legitimate, well-funded pathways that are absolutely moving beyond the hype.
Okay, what's the first thing?
The first is the solid-state battery. So remember that highly flammable, thick liquid electrolyte that causes thermal runaway and sluggish cold weather performance?
The liquid bouncer that freezes and catches fire.
Exactly. Well, solid-state technology completely removes the liquid.
Really?
It replaces the liquid electrolyte with a solid piece of ceramic or polymer. It still lets the ions pass through, but it is entirely non-flammable.
Oh, wow. So the battery literally cannot catch fire even if it gets crushed.
Right. And because you remove all the heavy safety casing and cooling systems required to manage that liquid fire risk, you can pack the energy much, much denser.
Oh, so that solves the airplane luggage problem and dramatically increases the range of an electric car.
Exactly. Now, the second major breakthrough is the sodium-ion battery. And this is aimed directly at the grid scale problem you just mentioned.
Okay.
Sodium sits right below lithium on the periodic table. It has very similar chemical properties, like it readily sheds an electron, but sodium atoms are significantly larger and heavier than lithium atoms.
Okay, so a sodium battery would just be too heavy and bulky to fit in a thin smartphone.
Yeah, your phone would weigh a ton. But if you were building a stationary warehouse to back up a solar farm, weight doesn't matter at all.
Right.
And the monumental advantage of sodium is that it is one of the most abundant elements on the entire planet.
Wait, it's literally sea salt, right?
It's literally sea salt. You completely bypass the geopolitical bottleneck of mining rare lithium and cobalt. You can build the grid batteries out of materials that are cheap, abundant, and accessible everywhere.
That is incredible. But if solid state and sodium are the obvious answers, why aren't we deploying them globally today?
Because of what the industry calls the engineering valley of death.
The Valley of Death.
Yeah. It is one thing for a team of postdocs to make a pristine, coin-sized solid-state cell work for 50 cycles in a highly temperature-controlled laboratory.
Right, in perfect conditions.
But it is an entirely different universe of engineering to figure out how to manufacture millions of large-scale cells a day, ensuring they survive extreme vibrations in a car, last for 10 years, and can be produced cheaply enough to actually turn a profit.
Wow. Yeah.
Bridging that gap from a lab curiosity to a globally manufactured commodity, it takes a decade of relentless, grueling trial and error.
So the timeline is really constrained by the brutal reality of manufacturing physics, not just the initial discovery itself.
Exactly. The country or the company that finally masters the manufacturing logistics for solid-state or cheap sodium batteries, they will hold the keys to the next century of energy.
Right.
But you have to look past the breathless headlines and understand that commercializing new chemistry is a very slow, methodical grind.
Absolutely. Well, wrapping up this deep dive, I think the main takeaway here is just a profound shift in perspective. A battery is not some black box of electricity.
Definitely not.
It is this masterpiece of applied chemistry, right?
So-
It's an environment where raw elemental tension is carefully bottled up, forcing electrons to detour through our devices, doing all our heavy lifting, just to find stability on the other side.
Yeah, understanding the physical mechanics.
Yeah.
The ions sliding into those microscopic shells, the internal barriers holding back chaos. It changes this from a mundane object into a highly elegant chemical machine.
So the next time your phone ticks down to a stressful 10%, maybe take a breath before you plug it in. Just grant that little slab of glass and metal a moment of genuine respect. Because inside that case, complex reactive chemistry is being forced to wait and forced to work entirely at your command. And as we finish today, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder as you go about your day. We look toward this sweeping, fully electrified future, warehouses of grid storage stabilizing the globe, millions of silent vehicles on the roads. And it is deeply fascinating to realize what the ultimate bottleneck for human progress might actually be. In the 21st century, our advancement may not be constrained by the limits of artificial intelligence, or the processing power of our computers, or the bounds of our imagination. Our progress might ultimately be capped by our physical ability to extract, purify, and master the most basic chemical elements buried right here in the dirt beneath our feet.